Hi, everybody. Welcome back for those of you who are here from the morning session, and I think I see a few new faces this afternoon, so thank you so much for joining us for our opening day of Sasquatch Revealed. Since I do see a few new faces, I'll give you my Lacey Museum spiel. If you haven't been to the museum yet, you should take a look. We have exhibits there as well as exhibits here, so make sure you take a look both places. Plus, over there, there's crafts and door prizes and really terrific tours by our educator, Marissa Merkel. Also, if you missed some of the other talks or can't make them all today, they're going to be on YouTube later, so you'll be able to see them. We have all kinds of material over here about upcoming events for the museum, and if anyone would like to give a donation to support this wonderful free programming that we can offer you because of the generosity of the guys who came here to speak on this subject, we would really appreciate it. With that, I will introduce our speaker, Ron Morehead. Author and adventurist Ron Morehead, producer of the Sierra Sounds, has been known for decades for his worldwide research into the Bigfoot Sasquatch phenomenon. The Sierra Sounds are one of the few Bigfoot recordings that have been scientifically studied, time-tested, and accredited as genuine. Ron has documented his personal interactions with these giant beings and produced his story on a CD and also in a book, Voices in the Wilderness. He most recently released the Quantum Bigfoot in an attempt to bring the science and spirituality of Bigfoot and Sasquatch together. Please join me in welcoming Ron Morehead.
How many here have seen a Bigfoot? How many here think they've heard of Bigfoot? Oh, okay. How many here are not going to raise your hand no matter what I say? Well, I've experienced them years ago and quite a few since then, but I'll be getting into my program here, and I appreciate if you just ask the questions after it's over with, because a lot of the questions will be answered during the program. And just try to remember what you're asking. But it's recorded in a very remote wilderness camp. That's the way we got in with horses and mules. Aaron, can you turn the laptop around so I can see the next slide? Thank you so much. Yeah, oh, I can see that. You got any binoculars? That's good, thank you. Anyway, it's 8 miles into the wilderness, and nobody's fooling us. We know that, but you'll see what we went through. But that's our barrels. We took those in by mules, took stove in by mules to reassembled it, and we had a little camp way back in the middle of nowhere. It's a hunting camp. We're not looking for Bigfoot. We just that's the shelter we went to. And that's the camp the way it looked in 1971. And can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay, good. I don't have to. It's 8 miles, like I say, one way into this camp. These sounds we recorded not just once, but several times over a few years. So we took a reporter in there, and he started documenting things, looking for a hoax, actually. This is my buddy. We went in, and we found a lot of strange things up there besides just the Bigfoot, but that's all we'll talk about today. I'll be playing some of these sounds for you. These are actual sounds that, wait a minute. That's what we were hearing up there. That's been scientifically studied by the University of Wyoming, and it's also been studied by cryptolinguists, which I'll talk about them later. But there's quite a few people thought this was just regular sounds being played backwards or human sounds being manipulated, but that's been shown to not be true. They're actual, plus we were getting glimpses of them up there where if you don't see what made the sound, you really don't know for sure what made the sound. But what we do know, they left some big footprints up there, and it was quite an adventure. That's Al Berry. He's the investigative reporter that we took in 1972. Unbeknownst to us, he was actually thinking he was going to find out who was hoaxing us because he couldn't believe the story. Multiple encounters, this doesn't happen hardly ever. You're lucky to get a glimpse of one of these things, and hardly anybody ever has the long-term connection with these things like we were having. And credible evidence can often be ignored. Credible evidence can often be ignored if it doesn't fall within certain paradigms. We all have our minds made up of what we think these things are. At least some of us do. I don't. But you got to get out of that a little bit and just open your mind up, because there's something out there with 2 feet, big feet, huge, bigger, stronger, faster, stealthy, everything more than what we are. They can find us, but we can't find them. They're the hide-and-go-seek champions of the world. That's Al Berry again. This is a whistle exchange that you hear, and one of us was interacting with it. That's when we was getting a little bit familiar with them. We realized they wasn't going to eat us, carry us away, and we didn't shoot at them. So we were kind of getting a little comfortable. That was Warren Johnson. He's passed away now, but he was kind of the father of the group. And they've been hunting up there since 1958. This started in 1971, 72, 73, 74, and into 76, the close-up stuff. And then after that, it just kind of faded off into distant stuff, which I think it's because we had to kill a bear in camp. It was Ramsackler. So anyway, let me continue. Oh, here's some sounds I'll just play for you. Some of them may be redundant. I don't know. The first one is a display, and it's just a display. This is the kind of sound we ran into the very first time in 71. This is a... that was quick. They did that quite a bit, trying to scare us off, we think. We're not sure, but or they was arguing with another one over the food. We're not quite sure. Didn't see them doing that. They were just right outside the shelter. What I can't describe to you is how powerful these sounds are. I can't capture that on our cassettes, which we were using in those days, little battery-operated things. But very powerful, very high amplitude, and it just jar you. This is messaging with rocks and raps the way they do. You hear them going back and forth. They also whoop, but they message. We think they're messaging each other with rocks and raps. We don't know for sure, but that's what the suggestion is, because you hear one over here doing that, then hear another over here rapping differently. But they do it rhythmically, so there must be a message involved. At least we think there is. I think whooping sounds, they have different intonations with them. I think their whooping sounds do the same thing. They're trying to see what your reaction is, I think, sometimes, too, because we learn to not jump up and shine a flashlight or anything like that, or they just quit. But this is the night I got to see one when they were making these sounds. So that was adventurous night. But they seem to know who we are. And David over here, he said they follow him around. They follow a lot of people around. They seem like some people connect up with him and some people don't. My daughter's one of those people. She has encounters. This is two of them talking to each other. This was going right outside this shelter. We were all inside this little shelter you've seen earlier, and they could be very close to us sometimes, but I never got to see them when we were inside the shelter. The only time I got to see one was when I was outside the shelter, and they allowed me to, and that was 1974. That sound right there was in 1972. That's just one breathing. That's how close they can get. That one had asthma, we think. Don't know. So we don't know if they were trying to intimidate us, befriend us, or communicate something. This is Al Berry. He's the scientist that we took in there. He was just a newspaper reporter then, but he does have a master's degree in science, and he was always looking for the hoax, how somebody could have pulled that off up there. He never could find it, but he did write in a book, co-authored it with Ann Slate, but he became a good friend of mine afterwards, and we started talking together and going places. There's a gentleman, right back there. We talked in Bellingham in 2005 with Lloyd Pye, and Al Berry was there at that time. He stopped talking. He passed away in 2012. But, good friend. That's the book he co-authored. Anybody got that book? Golly. Oh, I do, yeah. I got one. I got two, actually. This is Dr. Curlin. He presented his report. He studied them at the University of Wyoming for a year, and he came up with this right here. I don't know if this will work. Oh, it will. Anybody see that little red dot? Can anybody see that red dot besides me? Okay, thank you. That box right there is the average human range of what we talk in. All those icons outside of it are the sounds you're going to hear in a minute, and they are represented by this up here. So listen to the last part of this, and it sounds very human-like, and you'll hear some, in the last part of it, you'll hear something that sounds, but you find out they can speak within the human range. A lot of reports of people over the years that say, they called out my name, or they called out my dog's name, and the dog wasn't there, and stuff like that happens. Hear that mooey tail at the end? That mooey tail was in the human range right there, and it sounded like something we could say. In fact, we had a scientist back east get a hold of this. She heard that. She said, there's humans, someone playing with you or something. Well, she didn't know that we had already had that checked out. Tapes have not been played backwards. They've not been slowed down. They've not been speeded up for any type of manipulation. That's what Dr. Curlin, he's an electrical engineer, and he studied them, like I say, for a year. Also, we got another report from a doctor in Texas A&M who listened to the sounds, the GUR part of it. He corroborated what Dr. Curlin said, which was made by an entity that was that big right there. And that's the book he had his report in. Anybody got that book? Oh, good, a hand. I saw a hand. No, his whole report's in that book, and is by the University of British Columbia in 1980. And they published it. I have the book, too. Me and one other person here have it. Chris, you got that book, don't you? Yeah. He's just not raising his hand. Oh, there. Well, yeah. I'd rather ask questions later or answer questions. Yeah, thank you. This is a two-time graduate of the Language Institute. I've had him vetted carefully. He's more than capable of doing what he did, which was he's cryptolinguist, and his whole military career was transcribing unknown languages. He got a hold of this in 2008, came out all the way from Missouri, where he teaches foreign languages now, even today. Interviewed me and Al Berry both to get the context of some of these sounds so he could go back and study them. He did the same thing. And he discovered a complex language within the Sierra sounds. I'm only talking about the ones I dealt with up there. I heard someone say earlier, they're not all the same. Gene said that. They're not all the same, in my opinion. I'll get into why I think that here in a few minutes, too. Oh, here's a sample. By the way, that's me, my little sock hat. It's my sagittal crest. Or what do you call it? Elongated skull? Oh, okay. Anyway. This first one's just a display only. I may have played that earlier. The second one will be an example of language between the two. So what is it that makes language? We had a human sound expert listen to these too. She's one of only 10 in the state of California that can do what she does, which is languages. And she said that that was a male and a female arguing, and that the female won. So, which you got to know, yeah. What is it that makes a language? The answer is a morpheme stream. It's a group of words that make a sapience sentence, like we have, like I'm hopefully doing now, like you do with each other, and these things have that. So what does it take to do that? A hyoid bone. We have that. That's what distinguishes us from other primates, the apes and the gorillas. They don't have that bone in there. These things have to have that in order to speak a language. Now, someone mentioned earlier, they have human mitochondrial DNA, which is the female side, and if they have, I'm getting ahead of myself, but this language thing is a big deal to me. These beings must have a hyoid bone to make a language, to make the, by the way, that was mentioned in 1968 by Lieberman, Philip Lieberman, and that's how long that's been around. That's our camp. And that's what one would look like if it was ugly. That's how we pack things in and out. I can't see what that says. Oh, that's the Nancy Logan, who was a human sound expert that listened to these things years ago and said what she said, what I mentioned earlier. This is something new, fairly new. If you can get online, which you can, if you can get online, go to Thinker Thunker Sierra Sounds, you can hear the full 20-minute presentation he gives. He's not a scientist, but does a pretty darn good job, I think, of looking into this. And if what he says can be corroborated by a university, which I'm trying to get now, by some PhD, because you got to have somebody with a title behind their name before anybody's going to believe you. And if I can get this corroborated, what he says in this, he studied these tones in these tapes that we have. He says they can make 5 octaves in one tone, and that's inhuman. No human being that known on this earth, no animal on this earth can do that. That's what he says anyway. So I just need some help finding somebody that has credentials that can verify that or discredit it, one or the other. I'll take it off, they can discredit it. That's me again, and Lewis Johnson and Bill McDowell, my friend on the right. We were the horse people, taking supplies in and out. Lewis Johnson is Warren Johnson's brother, and they are the ones who founded that camp in 1958 and been hunting there pretty much all their life. It's a real pristine area. You get up there and you just feel like you're in heaven. It's so nice. And I'll play you a sound now, which that's me. That was in 1974, 3 years after we first encountered them. Getting pretty comfortable with them, thinking they still wasn't going to eat us. Of course, you still don't know, but they didn't. I'm here today, so I'm a testimonial that they didn't eat us. They didn't carry us away. So that was me interacting with one that night, and quite an exciting night, really. We both got glimpses of them running through the trees, and they were working with us outside the shelter, which was a new thing. They usually wouldn't do anything until we got inside the shelter, but again, there was 3 of them, we believe, that night, the male, the female, and an adolescent. On the little CD that I sell with my book out there, it gives you the voice of the adolescent, and you can hear a little voice. It sounds like the mother coming down on it real strong. I think sometimes these young ones are getting bold around humans, and the adults are trying to hold them back where they're curious, and they will play with you. Somebody mentioned that earlier, too. They toy with people. They'll follow you along the trail. But they are curious about children. I heard Chris mention that earlier. And I think they're just they got nothing else to do except eat and watch people, I guess. Having language by the human definition implies sapience. And we're Homo sapiens sapiens, supposed to be the only bipedal sapiens on this earth, right? I don't think that's right. I think there's another form of hominid out there that is sapient. I think these are one of them, but I think that may be because they have human component to them. I have sapience attributed to humans only. What could that mean in the world of Bigfootology? You like that word? Everybody like that word, Bigfootology? It's something new, too. Oh, yeah, here we go. I'll let everybody read that. My neck's good. I can't see it from back there. Keep your mind open, because whatever these things are, we haven't found them yet. Nobody really knows. There are no Bigfoot experts, as far as I'm concerned. An expert knows everything there is to know about a certain subject, and nobody knows everything there is to know about this subject. So, at least nobody that I know knows. I know more than most, I think. Not bragging, just... I got to tell you, the mic was outside the shelter, remoted into where we were inside the shelter. So that's why some of these sounds you're hearing our voice in the background there somewhere, but you're hearing the creature's voice, which he just happened to be really clear sounds that night. Al Berry recorded that. And anyway, how do we begin to understand these beings? I get in a little bit of my research, what qualifies me to talk to you today. And by the way, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Al Berry, who fostered this whole study at the University of Wyoming and who got me interested in talking to people. Him and I went out talking, and then he's passed away, so I just kind of carrying the torch here. But I've been a few places looking into different things. And there it is, yeah. That's me over there between Spock and Captain there. Let's see, there it is. Researching means to look at all the data. It does not dismiss unusual accounts. And I mean, you gotta look into history, you gotta look into classical science, ancient texts, quantum science, native mythology, and your own personal experience and evolution. I think we have to study it all just to see where the dots might fall, what kind of a picture it gives us. I went into the Albert Ostman Toba Inlet, which is up there in Canada, Alberta, and that's Peter Byrne right there. we flew up in there. I flew into Toba Inlet. Was trying to recreate Albert Osman's story. How many here know who I'm talking about when I say Albert Osman? Oh gosh, I can tell that story. I can't tell that story. It's too long. He supposedly got kidnapped by a Sasquatch and held for 6 days in a place in Toba Inlet, just carried away. So that's why I say we didn't get carried away. But John Gate Green interviewed him in 1953, I think it was, and I got that recording from John before he passed away. But this is oh, I'm going fast. Oh, this is up the Canadian operation, which Tom, who's going to talk later back there, we just talked about that at lunch. We set up these cameras on these islands up in Canada, and put. It was on a boat. We'd stay out on the boat during the night with thermal imaging, trying to catch a picture of something because there have been seen swimming between these islands. We know grizzly bear do that, but there's also been Sasquatch sightings up in there, and that's one of the things I did. This is the whole river here at the Olympics, and they've been seen down this river by people. Yeah, well, at least it's working. A little jittery. I went down to Chiapas years ago on an expedition, a Mayan expedition into a jungle, and I just said that because I did, and it was kind of fun, military all over the place. So I went to Bolivia. That's in researching the elongated skull. That's Brian Forster on the left there, and L.A. Missoula in the middle. And those are the elongated skulls. We studied. I've been down there twice, 2 different expeditions, weighing the skulls, checking them out with 2 different scientists. They both corroborate each other. They have 25 to 30% more brain area. The elongated skulls were naturally elongated. They were not cranial deformation. The Incas did that, but we think the Incas were doing the cradle boarding of their youth to mimic what we think these pre-Inca people did, which was move those megalithic structures over those mountains like you wouldn't believe till you see it. It's just ridiculous, some of the stuff that you see down there. That's Pumapunku, which I went to also. And look at the rock work up at the top up there. Look at the stones, how they fit together. There's no mortar in those stones. And down here you can see where the Spanish did some things. But here's another one right here. That boulder right there weighs well over 100 tons. This goes on for about a quarter of a mile. And these rocks were quarried from about 19 miles away. And this mountain's, 14,000 feet almost? And they put them up there and put them like that without any mortar in them whatsoever. You see that stuff? All this is doing may not relate to Bigfoot, but what it's relating to is open your minds that there has been something with advanced technology on this earth. And I believe that 100%. By the way, anybody see the news the last few days where these pilots are reporting the UFOs? They're actually seeing UFOs now, and their government's letting them get away with it, which is pretty cool. And that's Dmitry Bainov, who, thanks to Chris, I just got his book a while ago, Making of Hominology. And that's in Russia. That's Don Bindernagel. He was on Vancouver Island, lived there. He passed away also. We're all passing away, by the way. The alternative to that is stay here. Anyway, I spoke at the Darwin Museum there, along with John and with Jeff Meldrum, and got sponsored over there by Dmitry and Igor. And this is where we went into Siberia, where they've been seeing the wild man. And they took us to a cave. That's how we got around after we left this one village, the Shore people, S-H-O-R, supposedly descendants from Mongolia. But they took us to this cave where the Yeti or the wild man had been spotted. And we found a track and a nesting spot. But when somebody takes you to a spot like that, you can't 100% say that it wasn't a setup. So we could not say with 100% that it wasn't, that it was real. But Jeff Meldrum, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, is he's a scientist who is an expert in tracks and feet. And we go 95%, but until you have witnessed it yourself and no one took you there, you don't know for sure. That's me in the Mayan ruins in the Yucatan, looking to see. I went down there and heard the Mayan language, and the Mayan language, anybody ever heard the Mayan language? It's not like Spanish at all. It's very Asian, sounds much like some of the recordings that you've been hearing. That's me at the Lovelock Caves with Joe Taylor. He's the one that I went there with. I went to South America with him too, but been to Lovelock Caves 4 times. There's a story there where the Paiutes came where they said they were battling the red-haired giants, and this is in the book by Sarah Winnemucca. And they drove them into this cave, set fire to the cave, and then killed them as they came out. But they were cannibalistic red-haired giants. Of course, BLM denies it. All the museums will deny it. You can't see the artifacts because they've taken them away to the Smithsonian or someplace. So you got this right here denying that there's really red-haired giants. However, unbeknownst to them, there's a picture. That's the Lovelock Cave up there, by the way. And you see that skull there, the big one? That's got double-rolled teeth. And the BLM denies, but that was taken 40 years ago when they were allowed to display that stuff. You can see the double-rolled teeth right there. Went into Nepal with Peter Byrne. Anybody ever heard of him? I'm sure a lot of people heard. He's an iconic figure. He's in his 90s, still doing well. I'm going to see him here in a couple of weeks again. And we ventured in Nepal doing the tiger hunt. That's me on an elephant. I was there for 6 days. Anybody ever seen that picture? We all know who that is, don't we? Her name's Patty. Go where the evidence leads. That's what I say. If an effective researcher doesn't selectively find reports that fit his or her ideas, does not discredit others, and keeps an open mind. I want to say that several times. Keep an open mind, because we don't know what these things really represent yet. Some people think they're just you remember the Gigantopithecus? Some people think there's something celestial about them. It could be all the above, but are they flesh and blood? Absolutely, because they left tracks, they eat our food, they vocalize, and they poop, and they procreate. We've seen little ones and the little tracks. We found a little 9-inch track along with 18-inch track in the snow up there in the Sierra Camp. However, could there be more that we need to or should try to understand about them? That's where I go with it. People say, oh, they're just flesh and blood, period. There's no period about anything. It's just flesh and blood. If you breathe and have a heartbeat, you're more than just flesh and blood. There's something else to us, and there's something else to these things too, I believe. This is classical science, researching that, and most people research using this method totally. But they want to see the proof. And Newtonian physics, and that's what we all learned in school, is go by Newtonian physics. It depends on your 5 senses. It's based on the claim that reality is material or physical, measurable, and predictable. However, Newtonian physics does not tell us how all things work. And that's when you get into another science called quantum science. And that's how you tell everything is like that. Researching modern science. This is quantum physics. That's Einstein down there. It's only about a little over 100 years old, this science, and this is Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who says this: it takes classical and quantum sciences together to have clear perception. That's what I'm trying to tell people, is open your minds up, because it's not just classical science, Newtonian physics, it's open your mind up to what's really activates the whole universe, and that's quantum science. If you understand that, you'll find out the people that are called the woo-woo people, which I've been called that, but the new woo-woo is called quantum, because it gets into things that from the subatomic level, and get you opening your mind up a little bit of what's really going on. We don't see everything there is to see. We only see what? Oh, did I look thirsty? This is my beloved wife, Carrie. Thank you. And this is Darwin, research in Darwin and evolution. Many human unseen attributes are not explained in Darwin. That tells how we evolved. And that's pretty scientific. However, I don't think it's complete. It does not explain intuition, psychic phenomena, telekinesis, telepathy, deja vu. Anybody had a deja vu? Do you know what a deja vu is?
Yes.
Okay. You know why that happens, how that happens? Because we only think time exists. In quantum science, time doesn't exist. Everything's in the now. And how do you have a dream about something all night long, and then all of a sudden, in the dream, somebody's knocking on your door, and you wake up, somebody really is knocking on your door? Clairvoyance, feelings. These things are not explained in evolution, at least in what I've been reading. So how does it happen? Researching ancient texts, did sapiens actually evolve in humans, or was it given by advanced technology? That's a theory that's out there. And ancient text tells us that aliens crossbred with humans. And I think it's been mentioned before. That would give the mitochondrial DNA, the maternal side, some human attributes. But I think over the time they've been diluted down by crossbreeding with the indigenous people and over eons, because they've been here a long, long, long time like we have. It's written that giants are part human. That makes sense. Could advanced technology have altered the DNA of a primate? These are just things you can think about. Don't know if any of this is true, but it's where I'm going with it. Here's a good quote by Tesla. It says, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than all the previous centuries of its existence." Yeah, she wants me to drink some water. I better drink some water. I don't like to drink water in front of people, though. I don't know, I never did like to see that. So we need to study quantum science, I think. And that's not above your head. Just get Quantum 101 or whatever, and it just tells you how things really actually work from the subatomic level on through the universe. Bigfoot, if Bigfoot has the same mitochondrial DNA as humans, understanding how we were made from the troglodytes, the caveman, could also allow us to better understand these beings. If they are part human, we need to understand really what our potential, what we can do as humans. I don't think none of us are walking on water yet. We're not showing all the attributes that I think we have within us. We can just connect with what really is existing in us. So, could there be a hybrid species? I believe them to be a hybrid species. Of course, we could be hybrids too. Another quote from Nikola Tesla. "What one man calls God, another man calls the laws of physics." Well, quantum physics and spirituality are the same, and that's what my second book is about. The Quantum Bigfoot is connecting science with spirituality like these guys did. Him and Einstein, these old physicists, connected those. Classical science doesn't do that. They have to stay within the parameters. Their discipline has trained them to be that way, which is not wrong. It's just not complete, in my opinion. Over eons of time, history has been lost or changed. What was once known as truth has become myth, and many a myth has been proven as truth. I believe there's a core truth to Greek mythology and to ancient texts. So we need to consider that. Native Americans say they live in 2 worlds. Well, what does that mean, they live in 2 worlds? It says there's spirit beings who can disappear. Is that even possible? If you get into quantum physics and know the frequency of our light range, the only thing we can see in because of light, there's other dimensions going on. We live in 3, there's 4 counting time and light, but there's supposedly 11 mathematically, and they have not been disproven. And that's how you disprove a theory in quantum, is by mathematically disproving. It's accepted worldwide by physicists. So is there a core truth to this? Is there a core truth to this? Ancient texts, biblical, Greek mythology, demigods. You guys do recognize that picture, right? Yeah. I like to say I took that, but I didn't. I don't know if I'd even want to be there. Is there a core truth? How about this? A government conspiracy. A lot of people have that going on. Could the government know about this? I believe they do. Are they doing something with it? I don't know, but I've had a couple geneticists under the table, can't talk about it, but they worked for the government doing DNA manipulation of primates. So actually, I think Hitler was working on a super warrior back in World War II. So it's nothing new, trying to create something that will overcome the enemy. Any truth to that? Yeah, I think so. Here's a good one. Could Bigfoot be a remnant of such alien intervention? And aliens are being accepted nowadays, unlike 10 years ago when they laughed you out of the room. Of course, they used to laugh you out of the room with Bigfoot too, but anyway, since the pilots, Air Force pilots are coming forth with their information, their filming of these UFOs, that was just on Fox News a couple nights ago. Anybody see that? Does anybody else watch Fox News? I'm allowed to, so sometimes. Anyway, is there any truth to that? A lot of people say they're kidnapped. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. My perspective is this. I shortened this down a little bit, but I believe beings from the cosmos have been on this planet and are most likely here now. They're being seen now. I believe them to be a hybrid, part human. That's mitochondrial DNA only. And by the way, up above Bhutan and Nepal, the Himalayas, just recently National Geographic did a full-blown study up into the high mountains there, 17,000 feet. They got the environmental DNA out of a pond and off some prints. And the mitochondrial DNA came out like 99% human after a 2-year study. That was in 2014. So that's kind of interesting, I think, because that's not just one. However, when I read her report, her official report, that part was taken out. I wonder how that happens. Let's see, it's been written that these beings crossbred with humans and created giants. Over eons, Sasquatch may have been diluted from crossbreeding, making them more human-like. Some are more human-like than others. I don't know what we were dealing with up there that made these sounds, but they have big footprints. They have vocalizations. They're huge. The largest track we found up there was 26 inches and had a 13-foot between them, so you can do the math on that one. That's big, whatever it was. Alien manipulation of DNA into primates gave them advanced attributes. And when I say that, because there's so many mysteries surrounding these things. I mean, the people say, I believe these people, some of them are very credible. I've interviewed highway patrolmen, I've interviewed forestry workers. When these people say they saw it just evaporate or disappear, you wonder, I used to just write them off when I started hearing that, but then I realized there is rules in quantum field that could allow for that because it goes out of our perception. How does energy work? How does vibration work? Get into that stuff and you realize what's really going on around you. A lot of things we don't see. Some may want to help humans, others may want to harm, depends on, they're not all the same. Some are bad and some are good. Depends on what the nuclear DNA is, which is the male counterpart. At the most minute level of matter, everything is energy, vibrating at different frequencies. Find that frequency and change matter. That's a pretty cool thing to say right there. Because everything can alter if you can find its frequency. So what now if you think there's a hairy hominid around? What do? I got some do's and don'ts that has worked for me over the years, and it's in my second book, I think it is, Quantum Bigfoot. That's me and my trusty mule up on top of a mountain up there at the Sierra Camp, close to it anyway. And that's the kind of terrain you got up there. It's not very, it's very imposing to get there, let's put it that way. I've had a few broken ribs coming off the cliffs with my horse and mule, so things like that happen. Use classical science first to try and understand unusual events. If something's unusual, don't assume just because you don't know what it is that it's a Bigfoot. You got to know, got to rule everything else out. Unless you see a track or had a sighting or something like that, you don't know if that scream or howl was really a Bigfoot. Don't be limited by predetermined ideas. A lot of us have those. Consider inside and outside our three-dimensional parameters. Relax and allow, their terms, their time. We found you can't make it happen. When we're up there, you just got to wait, do what you're doing, and if it happens, it happens. You can't make it happen. At least we could never make it happen. We tried to play the sounds. I don't suggest blasting these sounds that I've recorded out here. A lot of people buy them thinking we're going to go out and blast them. Well, they might get some attention, but we don't know what they're saying. We just know the sounds have been transcribed as a language, which I told you what language was earlier, but you still don't know what the words mean until one of them comes in and points to a tree and says, ooga, ooga, that's a tree. You don't know that ooga, ooga means a tree. So I don't know what they were saying or what they were trying to ask me that night. I haven't got that on my first CD out there, but a lot of interaction, and that was extremely exciting. Above all, keep an open mind. I've said that, but not so open that your brains fall out. Don't know what that thing was slapping as either as, I don't know. We didn't see that happening. We just, that's my book. It's available, Quantum Bigfoot. And it gets into all these reconnecting science and spirituality, quantum entanglement. A lot of people say that it's talking to them in the brain. They just hear something going on. How that happens, there is a way that happens. And it's intuitiveness. Things are very intuitive. It gets into all these different things. Pineal gland, anyway, it brings science and spirituality together because they're on the same plane as far as I'm concerned. Quantum science is. That's my second book, or my first book. That's my first book. It comes with a CD, and as you get to the context of sounds, you can play the sound. And I have sold under 1 million copies. And if you want to get a hold of me, that's my address. I'm easy to find. I also have these 2 CDs that I produced, and they're available out there too. These are, the first one I produced is Al Berry's story, the investigative report that we took in. It's got the very aggressive sounds on it. The second one is I narrated, and it's my story. They're both about 40 minutes long. They've got integrated sounds that we recorded in them. And anyway, the second one's got more of the whoops, the knocks, and the communicative type things that I went through up there. So anyway, that's my program. Any questions? Oh, right back there, yes.
So you went up annually, or?
Yes.
And how long did you stay?
Well, sometimes we stay a week, sometimes we stay just 2 or 3 days. Usually no less than 3 as a rule. And I was up there this last summer. So I try to get up there almost every year. But the thing is, the whole thing burned after I left last year. California's on fire, so I'm not real sure what it did to the camp area, but hopefully we'll get up there this year and see what it's like. But California had 17 wildfires. It was so smoky when we were up there this last year. Didn't see a bear, didn't see a deer, didn't see anything. And it was just hard to even breathe. I went up there with a filming crew, first time I've ever taken a filming crew up there because I wanted to document the place. It's really quite interesting, that whole area. So that'll be out probably this year later on. Yes, over here.
Were the horses and mules spooked?
No, they were. When a bear would come around, they would just paw and all that. But no, these things, it was like they were paralyzed. They're just frozen. They're looking, have their ears up towards the sound. Yeah, I'm doing it. You mean to quit now, or? I am. Any other questions? Back here.
Yes. Were there smells?
No. I had a smell one time, but that was when we had to shoot the bear.
It didn't sound like you had any sense of fear in yourself.
We did it.
We'll get a sense of fear in bear or some other kind of animal.
Well, fear is usually brought about as a human attribute because of the unknown. You can't help but a little bit concerned when those big sounds are right outside there. We had guns. We had them ready to go if a thing came in after us, but they didn't come in after us, and we didn't shoot our way out, so it was...
I think that's going to have to be all our questions.
Who?
I just wanted to add to the clinical.
I don't know if I will. I think the cryptolinguist might be trying to go up there again with his son. They're talking about it when I just seen him here a couple weeks ago. He's in Missouri, but he loves it up there. It's quite a hike to get in there, but he'll walk. And Okay,
Thanks a lot.
thank you.